Now we're going to look at emotional change, which is, again, like a very challenging part of our work, but I can say with like some confidence that we have actually developed good procedure that generally works well with people dealing with emotional challenges. And so I'm like listing this out here, as you can see in this bullet points. And what usually is required is for us to first create a safe space, right? Allowing the exploration of feelings. Sometimes that safe space have to be created even when you're on your own. So what space is not safe? Like, remember what I said earlier about self-acceptance? If you're being too harsh on yourself, you have a tendency to judge yourself, then it is not a safe space, even when you're just like dealing with yourself. So we have to make that space available. And obviously, when we're talking about interpersonal context, when you're talking to someone instead of just like exploring it with yourself, well, that safe space is of critical significance. Then we'll go through this like processes like gaining awareness and identifying what is actually bothering us, finding out what that feeling is, and very often by listening to your body. So this is why, we have covered the body first. Bodily sensation can be sometimes very helpful clues to what your feelings might be, and you can ask yourself, like, what part of my body is responding? Do I feel that like my stomach is churning, or do I feel tension in my muscle? Do I find myself clenching my fist? So all of these are signs or clues. And some people, practice like mindfulness or like experiencing. Some people use like, um, learn procedures to get to the felt sense, right? All these have to be learned, but they're usually not difficult to learn. So once you've got these, you'll be in a better state to be connected with your feelings. Once you get this sense and you're connected with your feelings, then we will actually shift back to the cognitive mode. That is like, how do we make sense of these feelings? That can include like naming it, labeling it, describing it, or allowing it to get symbolized and in terms of like metaphors or whatever way. This is important because naming and making sense of feelings will first of all reduce the fear that we have towards these feelings. And so we're more prepared to deal with them. The other thing is that it will give us a sense of control and mastery that will allow us to do our emotional work, right, better. So once we move through this exploration, gaining awareness and connection, we'll have to come to a position of ownership, meaning that like we are no longer denying and externalizing, right? Thinking that this is not us. But it is, you can see in the brackets here, it is perfectly okay for you to have to go through that. Like you first have to deny, no, I'm not sexually interested in her, or I'm not sexually interested in him, or no, I'm not angry towards my mother, I'm not angry towards my son. You can do that. But eventually you'll come to, yes, I do feel that, I do have sexual feelings towards this person, or I do feel angry towards my father or my daughter. That is fine, and the ownership, right, is actually an important turning point. Yes, I have those feelings, and it's all right. I'm a human being, and I have those feelings, and I'm being honest with myself, and now dealing with it, right? So moving to the state will allow us to move on to, expressing it, and in emotional work, expression is important. Once you have like sensed something, experienced something, you have come to own it and say that, yes, this is me, I recognize that. And then you can express it. Then you will be able to channel it. Sometimes people say ventilation, channeling, or discharge, or in psychoanalytic, psychodynamic circles, we can talk about catharsis. Well, there is like a process when some of these things are let out of your system, it will actually contribute to restoring equilibrium in your system. And once you have gone through that and you get to this point of self-acceptance, yes, you know, I have those feelings and they're now out there. Well, it's not that terrible. It's not that awful, you know, like now I gain a better understanding of myself. No one is hurt. I'm good. Uh, and I have this like ability, right, to look at myself and my emotional experience, and I regain this sense of mastery and self-efficacy. And very often, when you're able to go through this sequence, right, you will get to a point when some of the conflicts will be resolved, and some of this like pent up feeling, some of this unfinished business will get resolved, and you can get to a point, right, that you will feel that you're emotionally transformed. And that usually involves some form of reconstruction that is cognitive. And if all these are going well, right, then what you will be able to see is that like these emotional issues are resolved and you can move on, and you can see that you're a changed person, right? You see change being affected in your everyday life. I'm speaking from, first of all, personal experience, but also from like decades of experience in psychotherapy, helping people moving through this sequence. It doesn't always go like that in a strictly logical step-by-step manner. Sometimes there is some back and forth like among these steps. So don't worry if you have like gone to step 4 and then all of a sudden you find yourself like struggling again. Okay, like do I really accept myself feeling that way? Well, that's fine. You know, be self-accepting. Allow yourself to go back and forth again. So like this is like how the emotional change process can be mapped out. That right at the center, we want to arrive at a certain state of homeostasis, but the starting point usually is like some awareness, and then you like some form of articulation. You express the feeling after you have come to some ownership. But you can see that the like this is how I described it. But in this, I'm showing you this map to show that, well, like you can go in multiple directions. But remember, right? Eventually, you want to be like going back to this homeostatic state. All right. So we are now going to talk about behavior, and this is a diagram that you should be familiar with, right? And the idea here is to look like how do we learn new strategies and skills to replace problems which are actually like ineffective or dysfunctional behaviors that are not helpful in addressing your needs. So you have seen this before, and then you can actually now think of any problem that you have in your own life, and you can fill this out and look at like, so what are the things that I'm doing that are not helpful with regard to my problem, and then you look at what needs are not being met effectively now, and what are the needs that I should be meeting, and then like on the right hand side you can fill out what you imagine to be possibly helpful strategies and skills. Some of these strategies and skills you may not have mastered, but like it is good for you to at least know, okay, this is what I need. I need to learn to communicate more effectively. I need to learn to regulate my extreme emotions. I need to have like more sources of pleasure. I need to learn how to manage stress or like criticism from others. So those are some of the things that you want to do, and that hopefully will like help us. So now if you look at behavior, so like remember we have a similar diagram for the body, like what are the direction of change, right? So this is like a an important aspect of change, right? So we want our behavior to move from ineffective to being effective. So in terms of addressing our needs. And very often some of the behaviors that are considered problematic are problematic because they're not appropriate in our given social circumstances. And as we make improvement in the behavioral domain, our behaviors will become more appropriate, not only socially, but it is also more appropriate in regard to our own N3C, our own needs, circumstances, characteristics, and capacity. And there's an important dimension of behavior too, right, in terms of mental health. And that is like, are we feeling good about our behavior? Do we feel good about ourselves, right, having manifested this behavior? So if we have done things that we're not proud of, that we resent, right, that is like in psychological jargon called like something that is ego dystonic, that is not consistent with your ego, with yourself, right? But if you, and then you find that this is like, it's not me who's doing this, because I don't want to be doing this, right? But if you have made improvements in the behavioral domain, what you'll be feeling is that you own this behavior, you're happy that you're doing it, so your agency is enhanced, so everything becomes more agentive, and the ego syntonic, meaning it is very congruent with your own value system and preferences. And I just want to add another dimension, which is important to me personally, and some people find it important as well, but some people don't really care. That is what I call the aesthetic dimension. Like, does it look good? Like, is it beautiful? Does it appeal to your aesthetic sense? And that can be another dimension as well when we're looking at our being and our behavior. So that is like the behavioral change, right? So what you can see here is that basically it follows a very similar SSLD sequence, right? We start with like problem translation, right? Moving to goal setting, and then we formulate and design alternate strategies and skills, and then we learn and develop those, and then we implement them. So that is how it is supposed to work. And this is the final slide on the 6 domains, right? So if you look at what is happening if you're following this process and you're trying to create new behaviors and or the learning and development of new strategies and skills. So those are some of the key ideas here, right? First of all, we have to operationalize our goals into what is observable and measurable, and we have to be able to imagine it. Like we have to have like some form of cognitive representation of the strategies and skills and how they're related to the goals that we want to attain. And with like further training in SSLD, you'll be able to specify the relevant skills to be learned. Sometimes can be provided by a certified SSLD practitioner, but if you're participating in a group learning experience, you can sometimes learn from members who are in the same group. And in the SSLD model, we have a specific procedure called collaborative generation of skills, which is basically bringing people together, collectively finding a solution, because very often we'll be coming across situations that no one else has faced before, and even a very experienced practitioner in SSLD may not have a ready answer. But there is actually an SSLD procedure for situations like that, so the practitioner will be facilitating a collaborative session for us to come together and generate skills. I've also done this like one-on-one with clients who are in challenging situations that I have personally not come across, and I have to work with this client and go through a collaborative process to explore what are the good strategy or skills for that client. So that is like another model that you may want to watch out for. It has been described in the SSLD basic text, Learning to Change Lives. And we are hopefully also developing some additional learning modules to help people go through this process. And the learning of specific strategies and skills historically stemmed from what Michael Argyle, the late chair professor at Oxford University Department of Psychology, developed in terms of social skills training. And in the earlier phase of development in SSLD, we actually took in a fair bit of that. That is like we learn through observing, through modeling, through other people demonstrating, or through some kind of visual or symbolic representation of the skills to be mastered. Some people are very capable of like reading a manual and then do it. But a lot of people need to have the opportunity to rehearse and get feedback and maybe video record their own performance and then like review it themselves, or like review it together with other people to get feedback. If you're doing something on your own, if you're learning something on your own, having some video recording of your actual performance and watching it and looking at it would be a good way for you to learn and improve. And so we're talking about, coached skills and learning and practice. So coaching and feedback and review are very important components of this. And obviously the final step is like you have to go out there and do it, right? And then there's like one little comment I want to make, like when we try to go out and do something, first of all, we rehearse, get prepared, but we also have to get ourselves psychologically prepared for setbacks or failures. And obviously it is better that we do not run into this like defeating and frustrating experience too frequently, but they do happen. And we have to let ourselves know in advance that, well, like I'm going to learn this, I'm going to try this, but I may fail. But the important thing is like each time I fail, I learn something that will contribute to my improving my next attempt and therefore increasing my chance of ultimate success. So that is like the little footnote that I want to put to this like successful application in real life. So what we have done is like is a very long session, right? Covering all these 6 domains. But as you probably would appreciate at this point, like this is just like a general introduction to this. And when we're dealing with specific issues, specific challenges, we may then look at these 6 domains and see how they can be utilized to help generate an overall game plan for the person involved. Like if you're trying to apply this to some issues that you're dealing with in life, we would definitely encourage you to, one, consider the 6 domains and like utilize the principles that you've learned. And another thing that is very important is to have good documentation. If you can record what you've thought about and how you implemented it, how well it worked, and what are some of the issues or challenges or difficulties that you have encountered, it would be extremely helpful for yourself. But it would also be ultra valuable to us if you do not mind sharing them with us. So what I hope is that we will be able to build out a network of people who are like trying out SSLD experiments, either with themselves or with the people that they're trying to help, or the people that they're working with. And hopefully we will be gathering a growing wealth of experience. And we also would hope to have platform created or platforms created for people to share such experiences. We have actually already done that with some of our programs, and so I would really want to invite you to be part of this process. And you should always have like full control over what you want to share with us and what you want to keep private. And when you've completing this program and following our instructions, you will also find that in some ways you are sometimes also benefiting indirectly from the experience of others who have like shared their experience with us. So this is like an important step that you have also completed, right? And now I think you are ready to either try to apply some of those principles, or if you find that there are specific SSLD programs that address the specific type of issues that you're dealing with, you're also most welcome to explore them. So we hope that you stay in touch with us and continue to participate in future learning opportunities in the SSLD system.